So there are some new mechanics in Dark Souls 2 that I feel like you guys need to know about. These are things that aren't explained in-game, and whether you're new to the Souls series or not, these are definitely things you want to know before you're going in. We'll start with the simple mechanics and we'll end with some of the more complex ones. First off, you can now sprint up ladders by holding down the sprint button. Tapping the sprint button while on the ladder will make you jump off, and this is different to Dark Souls where tapping made you slide down, so I wonder how many lives I'll save by telling you this simple fact. The second mechanic we're going to talk about is the new Guard Break critical attack. In Dark Souls 2, if you bash at an enemy's raised shield for long enough, then he'll go into this guard broken animation. Tap R1 while he's in this animation and you'll perform a critical attack, doing massive damage. On the topic of critical attacks, parrying has changed. Pressing L2 will initiate a parry animation, but you have to time it really well in Dark Souls 2. Tap L2 just before an enemy attack hits you, and if you time it right then they'll fall flat on their back, which leaves them open for a critical attack. Tap R1 while they're in this fallen state to get the critical hit animation. Tap R1 too early while they're still falling and you'll do regular damage, which causes them to get up immediately. On to the next tip. If you're dual-wielding weapons, you can two-hand the one in the right hand by tapping triangle, just like in the first game. But if you want to two-hand the weapon in your left hand, then hold down triangle. If you're dual-wielding two weapons in the same weapon class, for example, right here I'm using two daggers, then you'll enter a dual-wielding stance when you hold down the triangle button. If you press L1 and L2, you'll perform special attacks. Be warned though, sometimes it won't let you enter this stance even though you have two of the same weapon, and that's probably because you don't have high enough stats. When I figure out the exact mechanic behind this, I'll put it up on the screen. The fifth mechanic we need to talk about is that your weapons will now take durability damage as you progress through a level. You can track this by looking at the red bar at the bottom of your weapon. To refill this bar and polish up your weapon, just rest at a bonfire. If this weapon reaches the very end though, then you're in trouble. You've broken your weapon and you need to return it to the blacksmith in order to get it fixed. If you don't fix it, then it's not going to be very effective. The sixth thing we're going to talk about revolves around this really important maiden in Majula. If you're going to talk to anyone in Majula, please talk to her. She gives you your first Estus Flask, as well as offering you the ability to level up with the souls you've acquired. Don't do what I did and go through the first few levels without your Estus Flask. It's not fun. If you find an Estus Shard in the world, then she can give you another Estus Flask in return. Next is that you can burn human effigies in the bonfire to reduce the chance of invasion by other players, but be careful with burning these and using these, because Dark Souls 2 becomes really hard when you run out of human effigies. Also, if you find an item called Sublime Bone Dust in the world, then you can burn it in the Majula bonfire to make your Estus more potent, more powerful. The next tip revolves around one of my favourite items, which is the Pyromancy Hand. Pyromancy scales with both faith and intellect, so whether you're a sorcerer or a cleric, you can make use of this item. Speaking of caster builds, leveling your attunement stat will not only increase the amount of spell slots you get, it will also increase the speed at which you cast. And while we're on the topic of stats, adaptability is a new stat that increases your animation speeds. This includes things like chugging an Estus Flask, or crushing a life gem, or raising your shield. Adaptability also increases your resistance to volatile elements in the world, like poison or cursing. You can't really go wrong with adaptability, as just leveling it up means that you become better suited to every situation. Now this next thing isn't particularly a new mechanic, but it's definitely more common in Dark Souls 2. So I've found that when you talk to almost every NPC, exhausting their dialogue will get you more than just story, and you'll find that if you talk to more NPCs, they will appreciate it in some way. Maybe they'll give you an item, or maybe they'll move to a better location. Just make sure you talk to people. For example, I'm going to use this to segue into the blacksmith, who gives you a hammer if you chat to him. Oh, and also, in Dark Souls 1, you didn't have to level up your catalyst or the spellcasting weapon you used for it to be powerful. But, in Dark Souls 2, make sure you level up your catalyst with Titanite at the blacksmith. The same goes for your shield, as these two things become way more powerful if you level them up. Do not forget to do this. On a final note, I'm going to tell you the mechanic for my new favourite thing in the game, which is torches. I love the way they look, the lighting in this game is incredible. Toggle your options while standing at a bonfire to light one of the torches you have in your inventory. Each torch contributes 5 minutes of lit time to the counter. Now while torches look incredible, make sure you use your time with them carefully because they can burn out and they can eventually leave you in the dark. And I reckon that pretty much covers it, guys. I can't think of much else. If there's anything you think I missed, just write it down in the comments. I just wanted to make this video so that you'd be equipped to tackle Dark Souls 2, you know? These things would have taken a while to figure out on your own, so hopefully it's a bit of a shortcut for new players. Remember to kindle the bonfire if you liked this video, and have fun dying. I'll catch you guys in the next video, and I hope you're enjoying all the content surrounding the release of this game. There's so much content to make, but so little time. Anyway, talk to you again soon. Later. Dark Souls. Where do I start? For the better part of a year, a huge part of my life has revolved around this game. If I could sum up how I feel about it in one video, then I wouldn't have 70 other videos dedicated to it.